Okay, Tommy, so we're recording now. So just to begin our lovely discussion today, thank you so much for being
You're
here.
very welcome.
Just to introduce, I suppose, both of us maybe to
Mm,
anyone who's listening in today. My name is Karen Quinn, so I'm one of the Read DL committee members. And as you know yourself, Tommy, I'm also a writer, but you're coming from writing from a very different perspective, and one that I'm also very interested in terms of understanding the process and so on. So you're approaching it from a songwriting perspective.
mm.
So I was just wondering if you could maybe introduce yourself to everyone, to maybe our
Okay.
budding writers that are out there.
Okay. Well, my name is Tommy or Tom Boner. I respond to both. I'm from Ballybofey. My artist name is Strawman, and I'm a tutor at Donegal ETB, which kind of links into how I got involved in this project. I'm a literacy and language tutor at Donegal ETB with the Learning and Living program. So yeah, that's who I am, and delighted to chat to you, Karen.
Fantastic. So you mentioned that this was sort of it was through the ETB that
Yes.
you got involved in the project. So the ETB is a huge part of the REDL committee.
Mm,
So maybe you want to tell us a little bit more about how that came about and
mm.
how you got to this point here where you've written this beautiful piece for us.
Well, the jury's out yet. I hope, but I hope you apply the same adjective at the
Oh,
weekend.
well, sure. By the time this interview's out, everyone will have seen it. So
Of course, of course, of
if
course.
we,
Yeah.
if we have seen it and it is,
You would say, okay, all right. Well, that's fine. Um, my colleague Amelia, who works in Letterkenny in the Letterkenny Centre, she is part of the committee and every day she's involved. And she approached me about this in January. And she, or what they say, hoisted a kite or put a kite that suggested it or whatever. And it really appealed to me, the idea of it. We hadn't received a book yet or whatever. I read a summary of the book and what it was about, immediately went, yeah, I like the sound of this. I got even the word brilliant. I started developing a melody which wouldn't leave me. It was that, and I had that in the back burner, so to speak, before even reading the book. And thankfully, it all took gathered momentum, and Amelia spoke with you guys, and you guys were on board with it, thankfully, and we got Terry on board, and Michael, and it all gathered pace very nicely. And then I read the book, and thankfully the melody I had for the chorus and maybe the verse, like after reading the book, it seemed to have, that it would work. Thankfully,
yeah.
so that was exciting. Um, yeah, and I loved the book. And I'm not saying that to be how would I say, just as an expected thing. I really loved the book. I loved the innocence of the kids. I loved the way they were trying to help. I loved the hero and the villain. I loved the story, the literal sense in which the children took the black dog, and mental health is very close to my heart. The mental health awareness. So I went, yeah. So I was honored to be asked.
Yeah, so you mentioned, and I know that you are a big mental health advocate. So it's brilliant that we brilliant that we had you involved
This will
in
happen
this
a lot.
project. I know it's stuck.
Yeah.
So I'm just really interested because you said that you really loved the themes of the book, you loved the characters in the book, but how did you manage to take this entire book and managed to get it into almost condense it into a 5 minute
Mm.
piece.
Um, it was when I read the book, I felt movement. I felt that because the kids are on the move the whole time. Apart at the start where you set the scene and what happens with Uncle Ben and what's happening with them, and that really resonated with me too. It's just a trigger that sent them. It's not. That's the thing about depression, is that it's there. It could be there all the time, but just sets a trigger. But anyway, I digress. But it was about movement to me. It was about the kids' movement, and it was about their journey. Basically, from the moment they jump out the gate or they leave the front door in the middle of the night, it's bam, it's go, and then you go and pick up Ernie, and suddenly it's Phoenix Park, etc., 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 until the final standoff, the Mexican standoff, as they refer to it in the song. I call it a Mexican standoff, and of course it required a villain of the piece, which was the black dog. Which my interpretation of a black dog as well is different. The black dog, but for the sake of this purpose, was the villain.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way I saw it. I kind of saw it as a hero and villain kind of thing. I saw it as a standoff between good and bad. And again, I refrain from being too judgmental with the black dog because I've got two of them out the back.
I know. We know so many lovely black dogs out there.
Yes.
But
I think they're getting very bad press.
yeah,
Yeah.
I know. Just for this book, though. Just for this book.
For this book, and I'll
Yeah.
speak quietly so they can't hear me. Yeah.
Exactly. Just whisper
Yeah.
it out. But you mentioned that, you liked the fact that it just went bam and then there was so much movement in it. And just that word there stuck for me. So I'm just curious, is that feeling of movement something that maybe would influence or is that like your style of writing that would sort of influence the piece?
That's a fantastic question. It would dictate the tempo and the instrumentation. It had a big say in that. I wanted to be bouncy. I wanted to be melodically bouncy. I wanted to be musically bouncy. I wanted that feeling. So that's a fantastic question. So it did in many ways. I didn't want it to be too fast so that the lyrics wouldn't have resonance, or you would be like, going singing too quickly and it would be indecipherable or anything. I wanted to maintain a very good tempo, and I wanted the idea of an organ was there, movement, picking guitar, but not in a sad way, but in a bouncy way. Yeah. And then it required a villain or the villain of the piece. So I had feedback from my electric guitar. Anytime there's mention of the black dog, it's feedback from my electric guitar. He's the bad guy in the piece. So it lent itself, very, very easily to that. It really, really did. Like for each character.
You could almost imagine or visualize in your mind musically certain instruments to suit certain characters. Love it. I love that. That's really good.
Because it's the organ. The organ is kind of and you've got the bouncy 12-string guitar, and you've got that there, and that's the kids, and then you've got the darker electric guitar feedback. So yeah, that's and that was a eureka moment. That was kind of like out of the shower, get that down on tape quickly. Yeah.
So you sound like you're always in, the creative space, if you're going about in your day and then you think of something. And I'm just curious because there'll be a lot of our wonderful young writers or budding young songwriters who are listening into this interview today. And I'm sure that maybe some of them haven't even liked the idea of writing but haven't started yet. So I was wondering if you could talk us through your creative process to give them an idea of how they could begin.
Okay. For this project and every day, to be perfectly honest with you, Karen, I get up at 7:30. I feed my dogs and I make a really strong cup of tea, and I go into my guitar and piano for an hour before my classes. My classes start at 10 o'clock. So I try and get an hour's done. So I want to give that, if I was to advise anything, is to make a habit of it.
Yes.
Make a habit. It's a muscle. Your creativity is a muscle, like your voice, like anything. It's a muscle. And the more you do it. Sorry, my wee boy's downstairs. 1 second. Ruby, can you go into the room, please, son? Thank you. Good boy. And so it's like a muscle. And the more you do it, it's like anything. The more you hit a tennis ball, the more you get it in the center of the racket. The more you play an instrument, the better you get. Songwriting is no different in that respect. So I give myself that time. That's my gift to myself every morning. Sometimes I wake up with a melody in my head, which I have to get down on my phone immediately. So That's my in the morning, and then throughout the day, I do lots of dog walking in between classes and all that. Walking with my kids, walking with the dogs. I always have my phone with me, and my sound memos in my phone are just like backed up now. It really, I need to kind of sift through them and kind of say, where are you going to use this, or is it for show or whatever? So that's it. Give yourself. If I was speaking to giving advice, give yourself that time. It's a beautiful way to start the day.
Hmm.
Some people are can be very creative in the morning. The cup of tea is very important. If you can have a cup of tea or coffee or whatever it is, and give yourself that. Get better at your instrument. Get into that habit. The more you do it, the better you get. The more you write, the more good stuff you'll write.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
and you as a writer yourself, you know, it requires. I know that even established artists like Nick Cave or whoever, or writers, they would just lock themselves away and write all day,
Hmm.
and they would treat it like a job in which they finish at 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening. Say, right, that's me done for the day. You
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
of course, that's our professions now don't permit us to do that, but we are permitted to give it an hour, 90 minutes, perhaps. You know.
Yeah, I think it's important. You have to, and I suppose when we're talking about this, it's a form of self care to be able to dedicate and to give yourself the time that you deserve to work on your
Mm,
creative projects.
mm,
So, if you are interested in writing, if you're interested in songwriting or music and developing melodies, then give yourself, like you said, that time every day. It's a
yeah,
gift,
it's
and
a gift.
it is, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I
Yeah.
like to think so too. And I'm really, you've mentioned a lot from, so you have like music notes, so you think of the melody first,
Mm,
I would
mm,
assume from what you've been telling me.
yes.
But from my approach to writing is would be words. The words would come
Of
first.
course.
So how do you go about writing the lyrics? You have the melody and then you just see what fits in within that, or is it something different?
Right. For normally, for this process, of course, for the brilliant book, I read the book, and I'll talk about my other projects in a second. But for the brilliant book, uh, I read it, and I was just boring, paraphrasing from it. So it's the majority of it's my own lyrics, but I was paraphrasing from the book, and there was like he was talking about in the city, talking about people saying it's brilliant, from the pubs to the clubs to the theaters to the bars. It kind of bounces along, you know, that I'm saying this, and I tried to apply that kind of bounciness to the thing. So for that, of course, I had material in which to work from, you know, and to tell a story from in 5 minutes, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
So, but normally it would be something I feel passionate about. It could be. For my next album, I've written the song about the local river. I've written a song about my dogs. I've written a song about my partner. I've written a song about my kids. So it's what I find people I love in the world and the things I love in the world. And also then there's another song, maybe an anti-Brexit song or something, you know. So there are topics that maybe I think about from time to time, and it depends sometimes if the music, if the melody is defiant, if the melody is, I can, and that just comes with practice, I suppose. I can kind of feel: is this going to be a kind of a love song? Is this going to be a song of affection? Is this going to be a song of defiance? Is this going to be a protest song? That kind of takes root early,
Yeah.
early early on. I don't know if that's answering your question as well as I can, you know?
Yeah, so it seems to it sounds like you have things that you're passionate about, and then maybe certain words stick in your mind, and you let that
Yeah,
grow from there. Would that be a correct?
exactly. Exactly. I had an expression the last day. Here's an example called jump the shark.
Yeah,
Have
love
you ever
that.
heard this?
Yeah,
Just jump the shark.
yeah.
And I just put it, I listen to a lot of podcasts when I'm doing the housework and different things or whatever. And it was a bunch of fawns who Happy Days, and there was an episode. Happy Days was a hugely popular TV show, but it came to a point where they'd run out of ideas, And in one episode, they did fawns jump a shark like on water skis over, and it was it was a sign that they had lost completely, had run out of ideas. So I thought this was a wonderful expression, and that's title of the first track in my next album is "Jump the Shark." Yeah, yeah. So even little things like that, even little things like that can get the juices flowing and go, okay, where can I go? Sometimes the title can dictate the narrative, you know?
100%. Yeah, that's how
Mm.
I find it works with my writing too. I like to, I don't know about you. Well, I suppose you mentioned they should bring your mobile phone everywhere. I bring a notebook. So
Yes,
if there's anything that I see, read, or hear that inspires me while I'm out in the moment, I pick up my notebook and I scribble it down. And
yes,
for it's then something I can go back on and see if there's anything I can create then from those ideas.
completely. Because
Um,
that's a moment, and you've noticed it, and there's a reason that you've noticed it.
mhm, mhm.
You
Yeah.
know,
Because at that point then when you find something that interests you, then the words come easy. That's from my
mm,
perspective anyway.
mm,
I'm not sure
mm,
how that works for
mm.
songwriting, but
If it's a topic, if it's something that's grabbed you, if it's something that is supposed the source of inspiration, you
yeah,
know, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
definitely.
And but and that but I might write an A4 or two A4 scap of lyrics, but that doesn't mean they're the set. There's always rewrites, and that's more advice I would give to a song. Just write, you know. You can edit it back. You're going to change your mind. You're going to take stuff out. It's not going to be the great American novel or the perfect song straight away, but you're allowed to edit, you're allowed to change, but it's important to get something down, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I
And
suppose,
and you
no, no, going ahead.
you would agree with that, I'm sure, as well.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I think
Mm,
that you see, this was actually leading on to my final question, which
mm.
that what advice would you give to young writers out there? So I think that's really interesting. Just write.
Okay, just write.
Just right. Yeah, I think
Mm,
that that's from again from the perspective of a writer of prose and poetry and scripts. You need to just get the ideas down, and
mm.
like you said, that there's a process of editing there. Writing is rewriting, so
Yes,
therefore write without fear.
right without fear. My last album was called Fearless, actually. So
Oh,
it's that's a very and right with it. It's important to know that the sky, if it doesn't work, the sky is not going to collapse in on top of you. It's very important. So I would say write without fear is a wonderful thing. And when I say don't be overly concerned with how it's going to be perceived. Don't be overly concerned with what other people write for yourself first before you're writing for other people. Don't be overly concerned to how it's going to be perceived or received.
yes, of course.
Um, have your phone or your notepad. If you have an idea for a song, if you've got something in your head, get it down in your phone or whatever mode of recording device that you have. Don't go to sleep in it because you will not remember it in the morning.
Mhm.
Guaranteed. Death, taxes, and you won't forget. You won't remember.
You won't
There's three,
remember.
you won't remember a melody in the morning. There's the three things I can
That's the
guarantee you.
third one.
You can add that, and it might be very, very uh, hugely important to you, and it might be a buzz and all that there. But be prepared for kind of external apathy. And I don't know if you're. If I can give you an anecdotal example of this, and I don't want to keep you too long.
Oh,
I was speaking to a guy one day in the supermarket, and he says, "So, any music these days?" And I said, "Well, actually, no. Yeah, I've been approached by my colleague Henri DL to compose a piece for the Roddy Doyle book, and it's going really well. Recordings well, and absolutely right." And he stared at me blankly, and he says, "But are you doing any covers?" So it was what I was saying was out of his comfort zone, so to speak. You
yes,
know,
of
so
course.
he wanted me to say, "Oh yeah, I'll play Snow Patrol for you," do you know, or I'll play REM, or I'll play the Rolling Stones for you. So that's another thing, and I don't want to be. That's not a criticism of him, but some
So
people.
yeah, so it's I suppose just to explain a case some of our listeners might not necessarily understand the concept of apathy yet.
Mm,
That
mm.
it's just this,
Excuse me.
yeah, just this sense of maybe indifference at times.
Indifference, yeah.
Yeah,
Not caring.
not caring, but like you said, it's not intentional, and it can be down and motivated by other people's interests. So it can be
Yeah,
interested in different things, and just because your friend might be interested in sports doesn't mean that you shouldn't be any less interested in writing music.
exactly.
So that's the thing. I think you always go with your heart, go with what makes you happy.
Yes, and enjoy it, and enjoy it. Creating is a beautiful thing. It's a wonderful thing, and it's to be enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really, that's what it's there for. If yeah, it's the process. The journey is a lot more enjoyable sometimes than the destination,
Mm-hmm. So
as you know yourself. You
yeah,
know.
exactly. So
Um, and if there was any other bits of advice, if you play the guitar, practice every day. If you sing, sing every day. Even a little. If the better you get at your instrument or your voice, or the better the song will be. I suppose that makes sense.
it
Yeah.
does
Mhm.
definitely. So basically, just to sum up, practice every day and enjoy the journey.
And then, yes, and enjoy the journey. And one one last thing.
Go for it.
Um, Simple chords. When I started songwriting, I used to think, oh, this has to be in a C major seventh, minor seventh sustained. You think you had to use all these complex chords. It's not the case. You can use three chords, but if you're using a different melody for each one, you can create a song from that. So simple open chords, major chords are absolutely fine as well. Some of the greatest songs were written in those with those chords. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's brilliant. So let's try and maybe we'll try and summarize this interview together then.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yes. Oh yeah, get ready.
Yeah.
So I'll start off. So the any chord will do. Is that
Any chord you can go. Yes, the simple open chords. If you've got a strong melody behind it, yeah, any chord will do.
any chord will do? Um, enjoy the journey, love the journey, do what makes you happy.
Mm.
Yes. Uh,
Don't take people's not caring as criticism.
yeah,
Don't take it personally. Don't take anything like that personally.
don't take anything like that personally because it's important to focus on what makes you happy as a person.
Exactly.
To reward yourself with the time to write and to
Mm.
practice.
Mm.
Um, to not jump the shark.
Yeah. Yeah.
What else? One final bit. I suppose to always look for inspiration. Look at the world around you.
Mm.
Maybe sometimes maybe we get lost in our phones these days at times.
Mm.
So it's nice to look
Completely.
up and see what's around us and see what inspiration we can draw from it.
Yes, absolutely. And you just mentioned about lyric writing there. You can always write from someone else's perspective. You can always write in the third person, but you can use I in it. So none of us are living these massively dramatic lives in which every song, but you can write from someone else's perspective as well, which is kind of a different technique. I
Yeah,
keep I keep adding on these as well.
that's another good technique. So
Yeah,
to think of, it doesn't have to be your story. It can be the
exactly.
story from a book, like brilliant.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
and just go with it. Pick up
Yes.
a book maybe and pick up brilliant.
Yeah.
You've written a brilliant song about brilliant, that we have of course heard right now.
Of
Yeah,
course, you've heard it.
heard it.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And we may have some young writers out there who may decide to look at the book themselves and write their own.
Would be just fantastic.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yeah. Yeah.
Version.
That can inspire. Would be just fantastic.
Yeah.
Wonderful is right. Yeah. Yeah.
Tommy, you've been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for talking to me today. Thank you so much for your contribution to Read DL
You're
2021.
most welcome, Karen. It's been
Um,
an honor. I've been very, very honored to be part of the project. I've
oh,
just enjoyed it so much. So thank you.
Well, we've been delighted to have you on board. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And we'll talk to you again very, very soon.
Okay. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Bye
Bye.
everyone. Bye bye. Bye.
Bye.